Hey everybody, Adam and Tim here to bring you this week's fishing report and forecast for the month of April. Before we get into it, I just want to remind you guys that tomorrow, April 11th, we are having our big Light Tackle Marathon sales event. That's going to be having 15% off a whole bunch of fishing gear here in the store. We are also doing that rod and reel trade-in. So if you come in, trade in some rod and reels, you will get an extra 10% off to use on one purchase, as many rods and reels as you want, but on that one purchase. In addition, we're going to have a raffle going on. For every $60 or more rod, reel, or combo you buy, you're going to get one raffle ticket, and that's going to go towards a couple cool prizes. First place is a St. Croix Victory 6/8 medium, so that's going to be really awesome for you guys. Besides that, parking lot party, food, games, all that stuff. It's going to be a really great event. We're going to have some pros here as well to answer your guys' questions, so we hope to see you tomorrow. Now, let's get right into this forecast to start. Timmy, you want to tell us a little bit about what's coming in April down on the coast?
Yeah, for sure. So as we start getting into the month of April and water temps continue to warm, we should start seeing more black drum being caught on the beach. I know people are starting to catch them off Assateague, Chincoteague, and some of the Virginia barrier islands. Shortly after, we should also start seeing migratory stripers push out of the bay and hit the beaches, the inlets, near shore structures, and start to feed on their way up the coast to their summertime hangout areas. So look for that to improve. The coastal slot striper bite should be continuing to get better too on the inlets, but also start looking for migratory bluefish coming up from Florida. Last few years have been really good around here, so that hopefully they'll hit the beach hard this year, and they'll be a lot of fun to target. Flounder fishing's already off to a good start. That should continue to improve too, tog on the jetties as well. But that's what we should be looking forward to this month. It's a great month to be fishing our beach fronts around here.
For sure. And as far as the bay goes for the month of April, we're going to start to see a lot of our big migratory rockfish head out. They're going to go down the bay, up the coast, towards the northeast. So really April is going to be your last chance until the late fall to get a shot at those big migratory fish. But that being said, the schoolie bite should really start to pick up here. Shallow water, deep water, they're going to be, as Tim said, with rising water temperatures, they're going to be ready to feed. So keep an eye on that. It's really cool that we've got April open this year for rockfish. As far as white perch go, they are slowly but surely making their way out of the creeks. So we might start seeing them at some of your creek mouths in the rivers of the bay. So you can go ahead and start trying some white perch fishing out there as well. Catfish bite should continue to be pretty good here in the bay. Again, look at creek mouths, river mouths, things like that. One other thing is going to be our red drum. They are starting to show up. We've heard some trickles of some unconfirmed reports of them showing up in Virginia, but throughout this whole month of April, they should be starting to show up, moving up the bay, and we might even see some in Maryland waters. As far as some freshwater stuff goes, your crappie and bass should start spawning this month, depending on water temperatures. We kind of want to hit that 60-degree mark, but your first couple fish will start spawning, which means your crappie are going to be up shallow, which also means that your bass are going to be starting to move up shallow too. If you're not finding them up shallow, look at sort of those transition points from deep to shallow, whether that's like submerged timber on a ledge, deep water off a rocky point, things like that. Snakehead, again, as the water temps continue to rise, they should continue to be firing up throughout this month. I've even heard some reports of like a couple hot days in a row, people getting them on top water, but we should start to see a little bit more top water action going on with them as those water temperatures rise. Remember that kind of 3-day rule. You want to look for 3 days in a row of sort of warmer temperatures, and on that third day, at the hottest part of the day, afternoon, evening, you might have a pretty good topwater bite. A couple other things for this month. The shad run is going strong right now. It's going to start to end as we get further and further through April, so make sure you guys get out there soon if you want to get your taste of some hickory and American shad. And then trout. DNR was stocking all spring. There's still trout to be caught in the creeks. And so check their website and see where you can go catch some trout. As as far as the forecast goes, that's about it. We'll move into the report of things we heard from this past week, and yeah, we'll get right into it. So we'll start on the coast again for the report. You want to tell us some things, Tim?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start off with tog. I've heard the bite at the Ocean City jetty's been pretty good recently. And to fish that, you can employ a variety of tog jigs. If the current's too heavy and you can't get your tog jigs down, you can use like a drop shot rig or like a high-low rig like we got here. Also, people have been catching some black drum in the surf. Something like this, a basic fish finder rig. We have these pre-tied in store with 80-pound mono and a fish finder slide in there. Look for drains, sloughs, cuts in the surf where those fish are going to be stacked up, hopefully looking for crabs and clams and whatever else is getting sucked out. Flounder, it seems like it's been a decent bite so far. Should only get better as we get further into the month, but you know, you can just fish soft plastics like these gulps here. We have 6-inch white. This is kind of a classic bait, but they don't just eat gulps. You know, you can use Z-Mans, you can use Bass Assassins. Scent definitely helps, so if you're using an unscented bait, I'd load it up with Procure. But you know, look for them shallow, look for them deep. It just depends on the day. But yeah, that's been a decent bite so far. I've also heard of some big stripers being caught off our coast recently, so
Yep.
It's a good time to be out there.
For sure, for sure. So we'll skip over from the coast into freshwater. Snakeheads, as I mentioned in the forecast, they are definitely starting to heat up. Like I said, you want to look for those couple hot days in a row if you really want to get them on top water. But otherwise, just go out there on a warm day. You could do one of these high octane spinners. They work really, really well with that small white paddle tail and that gold blade. That's sort of my personal favorite combination to go when I'm fishing for snakeheads. But areas like Blackwater, some of your rivers on the west side, some of your ponds and lakes and things like that snakeheads have found their way into. They should be feeding. They are not even close to spawning right now. They just had a cold winter, so they should be chewing really, really hard. If you want to do live bait for them, minnows are a really good option too, and just beat up the bank. If you're fishing from shore, I would say try and cast parallel to the bank and bring it back towards you. If you're fishing from a boat, I would beat up that bank and cast as close to the shore as you can, and then sort of bring it into that little bit of deeper water. Largemouth, you can fish them sort of the same way in, again, sort of your same areas: reservoirs, ponds, lakes, upper reaches of some of your tidal rivers and creeks. The Pocomoke on the east side is a really good option if you guys wanted to run down there. But again, they are going to be feeding really hard as they are in pre-spawn right now. We're starting to approach the spawn a little bit in some areas, but we are not quite there, so they are still feeding hard. A chatterbait is always a really good option, especially for you guys fishing those smaller ponds or lakes. A downsized option like this chatterbait Mini Max, it's going to be really good. A nice dark color like that black and blue is going to do well and sort of mimic the bluegill that the bass are going to be feeding on in there. As far as crappie go, again, they're sort of similar, following a little bit of the patterns of the bass. They're going to be in those staging areas right now, sort of a transition zone between their shallow spawning areas and their deep wintering areas. So look for ledges, look for some deeper submerged timber, things like that. As we get some warmer water temperatures, you don't have to be quite as finessey with those crappie. You can sort of just chuck and wind a beetle spin. It's a really great search bait. Or again, minnows are going to work really well for the crappie there. One other thing in freshwater is going to be your trout. DNR just spent all spring stocking trout in these creeks. You got some rainbows, some browns, some goldens, depending on where you are. You can check the DNR website. It'll tell you exactly what they stocked and exactly where to fish. I know a lot of guys are throwing mealworms, night crawlers, even just dough balls of power bait, things like that. But if you wanted to use a lure, you can use inline spinners, but also what I've been hearing some people doing good on are these little mini 1-inch gulps. You can either just stick a hook through them and do them with like a split shot. You can stick a hook through them, do them under a bobber, or you can stick a little micro jig head on them. And those have been really, really effective. One last thing before I pass it over to Timmy here is going to be your shad. That we are starting to get towards the tail end of that run. Still hearing of plenty of hickories and Americans caught in the Potomac and tributaries, the Patuxent and tributaries as well. I'm always a proponent of a tandem rig for shad. Doesn't really matter what's on your tandem rig. A jig with a spoon is classic, but I really think that having a tandem rig is important to have a really fun day, just, beating up some shad. That's pretty much it as far as freshwater goes. We'll take you back down into the bay right now, and Timmy's going to tell us a little bit about some rockfish.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, the migratory fish are currently spawning in a lot of the rivers, or they have just spawned. So we're seeing big groups of fish leave the bay. They're often being found shallow, and unfortunately, they are very hard to get. They're very hard to get a bite out of when you find them stacked up shallow like that traveling, especially post spawn. But I have heard of people catching them on jerk baits like these Yozuri crystal minnows right here. Also like weightless plastics like the 10-inch BKDs rigged on a screw lock with either weightless or just a little bit of weight sometimes gets them to bite. But yeah, it's been tough to catch those fish on their way out, but it can still definitely be done if you target good tidal windows where they will go into areas of high current to feed on their way out. So it's definitely worth fishing now that we have the month of April open. Like we said earlier, those big fish are only going to be around for a limited amount of time before we have to wait until December to start catching them again. So it's a good time to get out there for sure.
For sure. And some other stuff that can, put a good bend in your rod out in the bay right now is going to be catfish, if you want to tell us a little bit about that, Timmy.
Yeah, so I've heard the salinity's up around here, so that's been affecting the blue cat bite. So if you can get farther up the bay, I think you'd probably stand a better shot. But even if you're fishing around here, you can go up the creeks, up the Magathy, up the Severn, go hopefully catch some channels or some blue catfish. But it's still worth a shot trying at some of the public spots. Like I said, it's been a little slow, but it's worth putting some bunker on the bottom at Mattapeak, Rummacoke, or Sandy Point, areas like that. But hopefully, that'll continue to improve as we get through the month. But like I said, I would try to find some lower salinity areas if you want to target those fish.
For sure. That's about it for the fishing report. Before we wrap up, guys, one more thing that I forgot to do. I know a lot of you guys have been asking about spots that you can fish from shore for a lot of the species that we talk about here. So as far as coastal stuff goes, you can fish the inlet at Ocean City. You can fish the beaches. You can fish the beaches at Assateague. There's the pier in Ocean City, the 50 Bridge in Ocean City. All that is going to be great places where you can catch any of these coastal species that we talked about here. As far as freshwater goes, you have Waterworks, which is a park with a lake in Annapolis. You have some of your tidal rivers and creeks like your Severn, your Magathy. There's Beechwood Park on the Magathy, which you can go fish. You can also fish the shorelines of some of your reservoirs up by Baltimore, like Loch Raven, Tridelphia, Liberty. There's some other ones up there. As far as trout goes, go ahead and look at that DNR website. They give you maps and everything all laid out for you for public access. For shad, you can go to Fletcher's Cove on the Potomac. That's a really popular spot where a lot of people go, but you can really go anywhere on the Potomac or anywhere where there's a park, like Fort Washington Park. You could probably catch shad there too. And then as far as rockfish go, you can try at Sandy Point, you can try at Mattapeak, you can try at Rummacoke. Those are all going to be good places to cast a lure or to chuck out some bait. Same thing for catfish in all those spots. You can also try like King's Landing Park on the Patuxent. You can try some of your parks along the upper Chop Tank, like in the Tuckahoe area, you might find some catfish in there. But yeah, and for snakehead, definitely just go to Blackwater. Tons of room to fish at Blackwater. That's a great spot to do that from shore. Don't forget, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask us. You can comment, DM, or come into the store. We are here to help. Know it was a long one today. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching, and we'll see you next time.